have your desks next to each other in the house. But me and my wife, we're in different rooms.
We have to be for privacy reasons.
For that.
Yeah, due to NHS confidentiality, we can't share an office.
Yeah, there are obviously things like that to consider, aren't there?
That's it.
We're actually lucky that we don't have the same desk. Annette's desk is a couple of inches wider than half the width of the office. Fortunately, I've got a small desk, and we actually get both desks in here.
Yeah, but our old house,
It fitted with a fire station in the middle. Yeah. That's because we moved to a smaller house, one.
I know. Well, are you not aware, saying about us working together, that Jonathan and I met working together, and we literally, for the first, 8 years, we knew each other?
Probably.
We worked this close together.
Oh.
I think I did know that, but still the concept of Emma and I working, I mean, maybe it's because we work at different companies doing very different jobs and we end up being on Zoom calls all the time to different people. But like when you're in an open plan office and there's 100 people and somebody's on a call, it's irritating. But if there's just 2 of you in a room and one of you's on a Zoom call, how irritating must that be?
Yeah,
noise cancelling headphones. You have no idea anybody else on the planet exists.
Except that if he's in a meeting, his colleagues can hear me, but he can't because he's got noise, and vice versa, because we both have noise cancelling headphones. Because we both basically actually sit back to back.
That's what I was just saying.
So it's not so bad anyway.
We're not conducive to this, me chatting to you, because I'm going to be facing the back of your head.
Yeah.
During this.
We break at 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock for coffee.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, 3 o'clock's cake break, isn't it?
Yeah, we've got cake break.
Nice to be formal about it.
Absolutely. You've got to get up to your desk.
Emma and I have just promised ourselves that now the pubs are opening again, we're going to book Friday lunchtimes every week is going to be our book a pub.
Good move.
Oops.
Yes, the rest of my cohort are down the pub at the moment. See if they survive long enough.
So just going back to this regions thing, I've been referring in all of the tweets to Dumnonia as one of the old English kingdoms, and not a single person in the Twitterverse has called me out.
It's one of the it's not even an Anglo-Saxon one. It's a
Exactly.
British kingdom.
Exactly.
Well, actually, it depends. Are we using the current boundaries of England, or are we using the 6, 7, 8, 900s?
I think we sort of picked the speakers first, then found regions to fit them into.
I mean, that is true. That's probably why.
Hence why the regions span about 400 years of time, and not all of them existed at the same time.
I'd argue that in the
like dinosaurs.
700s, they probably all existed. Although Dumnonia admittedly was powerful at the beginning and kept losing.
Yeah, that's it, because the bits we got nibbled off by Wessex towards the end.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, so not contemporaneous like dinosaurs. That's the regions,
Yes.
not the speakers.
Yes. Well, you have to be careful now, because they do say the non-avian dinosaurs are extinct.
Okay.
There's not that much difference between a dinosaur and a chicken.
What?
Well, they've now found
That
fossilized.
sounds like a joke.
No,
What's the difference
they
between
have
it?
found,
What's the difference between
they've now got fossil evidence for dinosaurs having feathers.
Did you see the genetic experiment they did where they turned off a single gene in a chicken and it was born without a beak? It was just born with jaws like a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And you looked at it and it's like, that is a dinosaur. It's got jaws like this. It looks like it's like one gene they turned off.
Yeah, they're pretty sure that, birds are potentially a more direct descendant of dinosaurs and things like alligators and crocodiles.
I was going to say, how do crocodiles feel about this?
Having
had that legend about them for so many years.
And there are all sorts of things like this. Like, so for example, guppies and catfish are more closely related to all life on land, including humans, than they are to sharks. Like, we all assume that fish are just this one group, but that's a gross.
The thing is, a shark is not a fish. A shark is a shark.
They live in similar conditions where they have to swim around, but actually, there's like all of the life on land is kind of one subspecies of.
This is an extra that YouTube was not expecting to have in this.
No, that's it. Well, it's like sharks. They stopped evolving because they're just perfect for what they do. Other animals had to work out what they were doing.
Share my screen.
Thumbs.
At the bottom, it says
They're
share.
great.
I know, I just clicked on that.
Right. And then you just choose who you want to share it with.
All right, so I just choose which screen, which is that one.
Welcome to Jeffrey and Steve who've come in. Just been here for a while. We're just doing the pre-event chat around. So we're discussing dinosaurs and fish at the moment, which is probably not the data platform topics you expected. And, we've not seen each other for quite a long time, so we have
I've got 4 or 5 people.
catch up.
I
Is
don't
it
want
worth screen sharing the agenda slide so that if anybody
Yes,
comes
I
in,
shall.
just see us
Give me 2
chatting it
seconds to.
So if anyone
I've
tunes in
got-
to
I've
us
got
chatting
2
about
seconds.
guppies and West Wales, they can understand when actually the show proper is going to start.
So let me just fight with PowerPoint to get on the right.
Comes to the conclusion they've landed in the wrong place.
So, current attendees, have you been to other sessions in the week or today, or is this your first one that's brought you to Data Relay? You'll have to put something in the chat. I think we're not audio equipped.
Good question. Current attendees, you're going to have to find that chat window now.
Uh-oh, down the bottom, wave your mouse around. Middle button.
At least we can practice now, as we want them to do that during the.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd think there was a reason for me asking the question, wouldn't you?
Okay, so Jeffrey came Monday to Wednesday. Who was speaking yesterday? Are these being recorded?
Yes, they're all on
They are.
YouTube.
They're all live to YouTube. They're all on
Go
YouTube.
back.
I'm also going through the process of creating shorter, trimmed versions of just the sessions so that people can point to a particular session. I've got as far as Wednesday with that. I'll try and get the rest done over the weekend.
If you send me the link to those when they're done, Alex, I'll tweet them out next week.
If you just go onto the YouTube channel, they're all there in Data Relay Broadcast.
Perfect. Okay. I'll send them out sort of Monday so that there's not to disturb people's hard-earned weekends.
To be fair, the only reason they're going to see it is if they're already looking at Twitter.
I'll send it out lots of times.
There we are.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. We've been talking about doing tour t-shirts for the next in-person one. We should have done them for this year.
Oh, I completely forgot to mention that. In fact, under this hoodie, here it is.
Nice.
Nice.
Well,
Yes.
I've gone my version of corporate, so I'm sequel bit.
Richard, where's your crown from the other day? I went monk this time.
It's just here actually. I've not been able to bring myself to wear it all week, but it's
Oh, your virtual
because it gets
background
filtered
is
out by the
disappearing.
background. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I decided I preferred castles to crowns. Although earlier in the week I was sitting in front of I think Warwick Castle with a turret just behind me that one of the attendees pointed out and made it look like I had a small pillbox crown on my head.
Nice.
In 3 weeks' time, I should be enjoying Harlech Castle. We found a nice little cottage in Wales to go and visit for the weekend.
Very nice.
Yes, so we can take the dog. Lovely.
Is this the dog's first trip away?
Yes, yeah. So it'll be all new and interesting for him and us.
What type
Yes,
of dog is
indeed.
it?
Cocker Spaniel.
Right, cool.
Hi,
Right.
Daniel.
He may make an appearance in the background at some point when Charlotte goes to bed. I did end up calling Kevin Feasel a good boy on Wednesday night. I accidentally unmuted my mic while congratulating Mark on having sat in his bed. He was, good boy. And someone else muted him when they worked out what was going on.
Yeah, that was me.
Yes,
Fastest finger first.
that's it. So, Jonathan, I'm afraid if I do say that tonight, it's not necessarily that you've done something well.
No, it's fine. I know what.
Unless you are a very good boy, in which case he may say so anyway.
Fair enough.
That's not likely.
Evening, Daniel. Good, everyone's setting up now. Let's give it a few more minutes and we'll go through the preamble slides, just about what's going to happen tonight. Yes. I'm glad people could resist the temptation of the warm evening in the garden or the beer garden.
Shh, don't tell them. They might not have noticed yet.
Mobile phones. There's not that much bandwidth needed for Zoom on a phone.
But actually, our background is all completely fake. We're not sitting in our office at the moment.
Virtual background, is it?
Yeah.
Sat at the pub.
We're just sharing our really untidy office with everyone.
So which of the attendees at the moment have been to an in-person relay event? Is this first time to data relay, or have you
In case you haven't worked it out, we need you to practice using the chat window because we're going to be asking you to use it a lot in the next hour. We know Dan's all right.
Yes.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
These are the Birmingham area. Excellent.
That's good. Yeah.
Good lad. Hello, Lee.
Yes.
Also from Birmingham.
All right, Jeffrey. Where you dialed in from, Jeffrey? So I was trying to think the last event. Oh, New Orleans, great.
USA,
Great we could get
wow.
that far out. Yeah, it was one of the things we were hoping to do this year with doing an online one, is bringing a few people who can't make it across the UK events.
Having said that, Jeffrey, if you've liked the content this week and you've come back for another one, so I'm hoping you're so far so good. Next time, take a road trip in the UK with us.
Yeah, we've had Kevin and Tracy and Kevin Klein and various other Americans who come across and done the week with us. It's all good fun. There was a vague talk about an American relay at one point, wasn't there? Not necessarily by us, but we were going to sublet it out.
I think you need to come further southwest than Bristol.
I've got time.
Oh, true.
Well,
okay.
We have considered going down that way a couple of times, but then you've gone and run a data in Devon or something, and so we don't need to do another one because we specifically try to avoid all the parts of the country that have an event on that year anyway.
Yeah, I don't know when we're going to be running another data in Devon because we have with bits as well. It just gets a bit too much, and our brains kind of almost explode.
Jeffrey, just to pick up on your comment regarding family traveling with you that aren't too keen on spending their week at a data conference, fully understood by many people who attend SQL Bits and the relay events. And there are quite often partners events that go on in the evenings or during the days.
Yes.
If it's half a conversation that you want to open up, then contact the organisers and see if there's something that they can basically occupy or entertain family members that want to travel with you.
A few of the European events are especially good at that. So if you're interested in going to Germany, Data Grilling is really good for that. They have every so many years, they actually have a bit like this. They have like a medieval festival on the weekend that they do the event, and they specifically time it like that so that data folks can go, but like partners can also go. And there's this big fun festival going on in the town, which is all kind of German beer festival and dressing up.
Very alcoholic.
Oh yeah, I mean, what do you expect? It's a German beer festival.
It is. It's very, very good though. Very good.
Right. I'm going to start with the intro so we can get Annette and Jonathan started so we don't run too far off schedule. Let me just get onto my PowerPoint. There we go. So, yep, this is the last day of the first week, the first virtual data relay broadcast tour. For those who've not been along before, normally we do 5 in-person events around the UK across a week. We decided this wasn't the best year to do it, as we are the very definition of a super spreader event. So hence we went virtual and we're broadcasting. So tonight we're in what was the ancient Celtic kingdom of Dumnonia, which for most people is Cornwall, Devon, and places southwest. So tonight we were welcoming Annette Allen and Jonathan, who
Hello.
are going to do a double header one tonight to start us off with on how to keep your DBA happy with your code. And following that, we're going to have Mr. Rob Sewell, the famous DBA with a beard, who will be talking about Azure Arc-enabled data services. I can see he's online, just no picture at the moment. And at the end of the evening, we'll put the slide back up, but we're asking for feedback. We always like to give our speakers any feedback from attendees. And this year we've got a drone. So if you fill this in, there's a cut-off of tomorrow, just to make sure that we get the feedback through, and then we'll pick one person to win a drone. It's coming from Curry, so it'll be easy to get it shipped to you, or for you to pick it up if you want to. And that's it. Normally there's a what's next slide. However, this is the final event for this run. So what's next is a debrief tomorrow and an early night. So just a little heads up, I think Annette and John will cover this, but just let you know, the first session is interactive. So please, Q&A and chat in the comments. It's really what people want. So I'm just going to promote John and Annette, whose screen is actually being shared. It's Annette's, is it?
Mine, yeah.
So that's the one we're seeing on your camera.
Yeah, you're seeing my camera. It's my sound. Jonathan's just going to be in the chat and be interjecting, shall we say?
Yes, in that case.
I've already made everybody. I've already made both Annette and Jonathan co-hosts. So I think if you just stop sharing, they should have screen share.
Yep. So if I stop sharing. Yeah, I've stopped sharing now.
Okay, hang on. I want that one.
I think I copied the correct link into the chat. Can someone verify that from committee, please, just to be sure that.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks good. Thanks, Jonathan.
Excellent. Thank you. Yes.
It's not clicking or resolving for me at the minute.
No, that's working fine for me. That's great. Thank you.
Fine.
Can everyone see my screen? Am I now sharing my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes, you are.
Oh yeah, I can see just over there. Okay, all right. If everyone's ready, we shall crack on then. I've got to make sure I'm focusing on the right screen here. Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you for attending our session. As Stuart said, we are the ones based in the Southwest, and actually Jonathan and I are in Cornwall, if anyone's interested. So who are we? Well, as Stuart said, we are Annette and Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Wave.
Hello, I'm Jonathan.
I'm a SQL Server developer and a DBA. I keep flip-flopping between the two roles. Jonathan?
I'm a database engineer.
It's a database engineer. And we're both authors on Simple Talk. We're both co-leaders of Data Southwest User Group with Mr. Sewell, who has turned his camera off and is following our session. We are all organisers of SQL SAS Exeter and Data in Devon, and Jonathan and I are both members of the SQL Bits Committee. So if you've been to Bits, you might have seen us either running around or looking frazzled behind the information desk, and I'm an MVP. So what are we going to be looking at tonight? We're going to look at why we want to keep our DBA happy, and to do that, we will cover a development process, which includes requirements, good coding practice, source control, unit tests, and continuous integration. Now, as Stuart said, this is an interactive session. When we do it live, we get a lot of audience communication, which obviously we can't do easily in a virtual environment. So we'll be asking for your thoughts and your comments and your experiences. And if you can put them in the chat window, Jonathan is going to be monitoring the chat, and he will be interjecting with me, and we will have the conversation. We want your thoughts. We want your opinions. Feel free to put as much in there as you want. You can use the Q&A, but the committee guys are going to be monitoring that. So if you have a question, please feel free to do that, or put it in the chat window, which Jonathan will be looking at. So is that all clear? Does that make sense? About as clear as mud? Okay, moving swiftly on. This is not a dedicated performance tuning session. Every time I run this session, people say, oh, we thought we were going to find out how to write good code. That's not what it's about. It's about communication. It's about making sure your DBA is confident with the code that needs to be released. Whether you're a DBA or whether you're a developer, it looks at both sides, and this is why it's interactive. We want your thoughts, we want your experiences. If you want to know how to make your queries fly, this isn't the session for you. Although there will be some tuning in it anyway. So why do we want to keep our DBA happy? Who does deployments? And who's responsible for databases in production? Now, this is the first time we're going to start asking you guys. So if you can put in the chat whether you're a DBA, a SQL dev, or anything else, and then we can start having an idea of what our audience is. Also, in your organization, who is responsible for your deployments? So if you can put that in as well, that would be great. So yeah, 99% of the time, it's the DBA. They will be the person who's putting code live. They will be the person who's responsible for the code when it is live. So they've got to be happy that that the code is in a good place to actually be put live. So many times when with my DBA hat on, I've had someone come up to me and say, oh, I've got to get this code live and I need to do it now. And I take one look at it and go, really? But by then it's too late to actually stop and say, no, this really shouldn't be going live. You have a conversation with someone and you say, I'm not happy with this. And you get management to confirm that it's got to go live. Or a developer has known that something's been coming for a while and they haven't bothered telling you. Whereas if they communicated with you when they first knew it was coming, then you're a much better place to help. Anyway, we have some stats. 70% of DBAs, 20% are developers, and so 10% are others. So DBAs, how many of you recognize this scenario? You're a developer, well, your bit will come in. So management come up to a developer, we need this change live. Developer is always trying to help, let's face it, see what I can do. Developer goes to DBA, can we have this? And the DBA as well, typical DBA, it depends. What do you do about it? Do you push the change live? Do you reject it? What happens? In my experience, developers and DBAs need to talk. They need to be on the same page and they need to be working together, not against each other. So what do you need to talk about? As I touched on earlier, you need to talk about your development process. What happens between management giving you the developers some code to do and the developer having it ready for the DBA to release, or what that release process is. You need to agree this so that you're all happy with it. So what could a potential development process look like? You get your requirements, you write your code, you unit test it, you source control it, and you run it through a continuous integration / continuous deployment environment.
When would you say this conversation needs to start, Annette? When you say devs and DBAs need to talk? When? Who makes the first move? How does this conversation begin?
I think the developer needs to go to talk to the DBA and say, when I have code that I need to go live, or when I'm developing, how do you want me to handle this? When do you want to know what I've got coming in? How much notice do you need? And as soon as possible.
So pretty much Monday.
Yeah.
Go and take your developer for a cup of coffee, go and talk to your DBA if you're the developer, have a cup of coffee and start talking about a development process.
Yes, exactly that. That's cool. What I think. What does anyone think in the chat? Let's have your thoughts. And do you have something different with your development process? Do you want load testing? I'm a firm believer in that, but it's a step beyond what I can show in a session. So all thoughts.
Confidential is this chat. Yeah, Daniel, it's being recorded for YouTube, so it's probably less confidential than you'd desire.
You can talk to us later afterwards, though, offline. That's fine.
You don't need a pre-existing relationship. I would disagree with that. I say you need to build a relationship if there isn't one already. Yeah, you need to, from whichever camp you're sitting in, you need to walk towards the other one and start that conversation. Yeah, right, okay, cool. Communication is the key, absolutely right. Yes, this is the whole underpinning thread of this session, is that communication is a requirement.
Any more comments?
No, we're good.
Okay. So the biggest factor though is the DBA and the developer need to go to management and get buy-in and understanding. I'm really sorry, I got cramp.
Oh no, do you want to stand up and
Yeah,
stretch or something?
it's all right. Okay, let me just give me 2 seconds. Sorry about that. Whew. Yeah, you need to get buy-in and understanding from management what is going to happen. Now, what you'll struggle with is management will say, your process is going to take too long. And you've got to prove to them that even if they need something turned around quickly, you can still follow every step in the process. You've also got to prove to management that this process is going to give them a more robust release process and that the code that goes live is going to be better. I worked for a company and we started a new project and I pushed to have a full development process in place. And we built the CI environment, we built in all the unit tests and did all the things properly. We did it in Agile as well, which I'm a huge fan of. And the project manager was pushing back and pushing back and pushing back because we said we needed 2 or 3 weeks to get everything set up before we started. And he was like, no, you need to be writing code, you need to be writing code. And we were like, no, chill, hang on. When we start releasing, it's going to be better. And he pushed back and pushed back, but eventually we got everything where we needed to be. Then we started writing code and releasing code, and we were releasing code so much faster than they had before. And what's more, when it got released, it was accurate. It was what was needed, and it was bug-free. And I bumped into the project manager a couple of years later, and apparently he'd just been for an interview. And one of his questions was, when have you been proved wrong about something, and how did you handle it? And he explained to them about all of this and how badly he'd handled what we wanted to do, but how he'd been shown that he was wrong and that we'd proved that the process we had was robust, that he didn't have to worry about code going out that had bugs in it. It was all what it was meant to be. So that's just something I remember, that it was hard work getting to that point, but well worth it afterwards. Anyway, you will find that this is the biggest hurdle and it will be an uphill battle, but you need to get through it, unfortunately. So what else do you need to talk about? So how much lead time does the DBA need for deployment? So I could go to Jonathan, I'm the developer, he's the DBA. Here you go, I've got some code to do. When do you need to know about what's going on with this release?
Weeks ago.
Exactly. So as soon as you know, you need to tell your DBA. And he will tell you how much lead time he needs. Discuss your code requirements up front and during the development process. When does he need to do code reviews and peer reviews? Any coding do's and don'ts that he has, they have. I'm a DBA and I'm female, so they. Who should do indexing? And we'll discuss that a bit more because while we write some indexes, then we'll talk about it in a bit more detail then. But who should write the indexes, the developer or the DBA? Is there any naming conventions? What testing is required? Do you want load testing? Do you want unit testing? Is there anything else that we need to do? Do you want end-to-end testing? When do you do your code reviews? And how does the DBA deploy stuff? Now that could be, there's multiple different ways. In the demo today, we're going to be doing an instant release using continuous integration. Maybe the DBA is happy with that. Maybe he needs to press a button to do the release. Maybe he wants to actually release the code. It's another conversation you need to have.
We've got a question in from Lee asking, do you let DBAs dictate good coding practice? Now, I've got an opinion on this, but what's your first shot?
DBA hat or developer hat? DBA hat, they are supposed to be the expert. Developer hat, no. But I'll let you answer now because you've obviously got an opinion.
I would say that none of them should dictate to each other, but they as a team need to dictate to management what the standard should be and what the coding practice is. If it's a functionality thing, then whoever is technically right has to be the one that controls what is done. If it's something that is a house style or a convention that's going to be adopted, there's some negotiation for that. But I would say that whoever is technically right, who has the strongest technical argument to say this is a performance blocker or it's a performance improvement, that's where it should come from. Have you got experience of that happening before, Lee, that made you think about that? What if the DBA wears both hats? Yeah, Daniel, you kind of stuck there. You need to have a chat with yourself. I don't know. So, two Spider-Men. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, moving swiftly up.
So, yeah, it is tricky when you're there. I guess what I would do if I was the only person, going back to when I was kind of DBA and dev, document the choices that you make. This is why I've chosen to do this, so that at least if the team grows or you're handing over to somebody else, there is a trail of why you chose it. If there isn't a conversation to be had and a full left and right discussion to be had.
While you've been answering, I've been reading the chat. So Lee has nothing specific, but he's not used to a DBA commenting on the actual code.
Okay.
Fair enough. It's are your DBAs quite flexible about what you release? Yeah, it's a good point actually, Nige. Who does comment on your code? It's one of the things that I'm a real big fan of code reviews, because just because I've done something one way doesn't mean to say that I've done it the right way. Okay, other developers peer review, that's fair enough then.
Yeah.
That's cool. Big fan of that. Just said that. Moving on. So, looking at development process, the first thing we need is requirements. So, what are they and why are they important? Has everyone seen this image? I'm assuming most people have.
Hundreds of times, but I still laugh at it.
I know. It's a classic. It's so easy for someone to say, oh, I want this. So you do that and it's wrong. I remember actually when I used to work with Jonathan, one of the managers came over to me and said, can you produce me X, Y, and Z? So I took it in good faith and I developed X, Y, and Z, and I took it to her and that's not what I meant. It's like, well, that's what you said. So after that, I started really carefully documenting everything. This was before we had Trello and Scrum Do or Azure DevOps, anywhere else you can record your requirements and your stories and stuff. So even if it's just an email back saying, just to confirm you want X, Y, and Z, and that's enough. You have to make sure that what the person is asking for is what they really need. And the only way you can do that is to ask lots and lots and lots of questions. I've actually just, for work, just done a requirements process for a new project. And by me firing loads and loads of questions at the person who was responsible for what they needed, she was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I didn't think about that. Oh yeah, we could do that. You know, this would be really good. You need to get them thinking, because what they think they need might not be what they actually need. But yeah, so requirements, you need to know what's needed. And requirements are like unit tests. They need to be quantifiable and they need to be measurable. So, for example, someone asks you, can I have a list of people who've worked here for a long time? Well, yeah, but is that quantifiable? Is that measurable? No. Okay, so we've got a long service award. We need to be people over 10 years. Okay, I can get the over 10 years, but who is this list of people? What information do you need? So you go back and ask more questions. And it's like, actually, we're going to give them a percentage of their pay as a bonus. So we need their name and we need their salary. And we just want to know when they started to confirm they've been here for more than 10 years. That final one is quantifiable and measurable and gives you the ability to write a report against it.
Daryl says that it's important to know what problem they're trying to solve. Whoever comes to you with a requirement, what's their end?
Yeah, absolutely.
Product.
And one of the other things that I always stress is, if you're writing something new, what information do you need to be able to get out of it? So what reporting do you need? Because quite often that will also dictate how you structure a development. Because if you don't produce your database in a way that you can produce the reports, you're stuffed. So that's a really good comment. Thank you. So moving on, the next part is to develop your code. So let's have a look at some good coding practice. Now, this is my biggest bugbear. You should comment your code. I think you should comment your code. I wrote a blog post about this and I had more comments on that blog post than anything else I've ever written. Not that I write that much, but anyway, it was crazy. So many people said, yeah, but you're source controlling it. So your comments are in your source control. Well, what happens when you come up to a stored procedure and yes, you know all the comments are in source control, but do you really want to have to look through all the source control commits to see what's gone on with this stored procedure? They should be in the stored procedure. This is my thought, but I'm sure Jonathan's going to start reading comments to me about this in a minute. Don't use select star, bad performance practice. Don't use subqueries or functions in a where clause. Again, not great for performance. Don't use inappropriate data types. Don't make the engine have to do implicit conversions, basically. Do not insert without a column list, just bad practice. Use set rather than select when populating variables. Does everyone know the way that works? That if you use select into a variable and the value is null, it uses the previous value. And I do have a little demo on that if anyone's interested. Use temporary tables and table variables appropriately. So use a table variable if it's less than, I think they reckon 200 rows, something like that. If it's small, use a table variable, otherwise use a temporary table. And you can index a temporary table, but you can't index a table variable. Anyway, just another thing. So those are just some of the good coding practices. If anyone's got any others they'd like to throw out there, put them in the chat window.
A couple of comments coming in. Chris is in the mire, seemingly. Lots of people in silos, having to go through 2 or 3 intermediaries to get messages from one side to the other, which sounds like really hard work. He's busy breaking things down and improving stuff, but it's slow going. So I feel your pain, Chris. Hopefully you've got some colleagues there who are working with you and helping that happen as quickly as possible. Daniel's saying that he's changed his opinion over the years, that it is now, he feels useful to have comments outside of source control. Source control is not the only place to keep comments, and I fully support that. Comments are only useful right when you need them. So if they're close to hand, super easy to reference them. Doesn't need to be as detailed in comments, I don't think.
No, I don't.
But having them actually in the code is useful.
Comments also should be
Chris,
why you're doing what you're doing, not necessarily what you're doing. You can read the code and see what's going on. It's the why.
Jeffrey's very interested to see that set select demo, so we need to crack on, put that one in if we can do, please.
No worries.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 a.m. trying to fix a problem, seeing some comments and data in information in comments in the code is useful. Yeah, everyone's on that bandwagon. Nige is already interested in the set select. A diff tool will always show the what.
Yeah.
We'll chat to Rob about that. I'm not sure what a diff tool will show the what is.
Something like schema compare, or your source control will say compare this to compare that. It's telling you what's changed.
Right. That is great to see lines of code that are different. That doesn't tell you the business change. I changed this on the 30th of November to make the Christmas sales discount correct. You're not going to see that in a line of code that's different. You'll just see it multiplied by 0.15 or something. Yeah, commit message is always useful. Cool. Okay, crack on.
All right, next step, we need to unit test. So what is a unit test? How do you unit test, and what do you test? So what is a unit test? A test tests one piece of functionality. So if you've got a stored procedure and it has multiple filters and does various bits, each unit test should test one aspect of that stored procedure. So you might end up with one stored procedure having n number of unit tests. I mean, I had a complicated stored procedure in a previous job that had over 50 unit tests because of all the different things I wanted to test. It's got to be quantifiable, measurable. So you've got to be able to have something that is an exact match. So how do we test? Personally, I use T-SQL-T. It's a free framework that you can download, and it gives you the ability to fake everything. So you can fake your tables, you can fake your stored procedures, you can fake your functions, and it gives you the ability to actually force in, if I put this information, I'm expecting this information out. And it's the framework I'm going to be demoing shortly. Another option is Redgate SQL Test, which uses the T-SQL-T framework, but puts a really nice wrap around it. So if you have budget, go for the Redgate SQL Test because it is really nice to use. So going back to our stored procedure, we've got to produce a list showing first name, surname, yada, yada, yada. What are we going to test? So I will have one test that returns one row for one person because they've worked here for more than 10 years. I will fake that information, I'll make sure it matches, and it should return me that row. Test 2, I don't want to return a row for someone who hasn't worked here for 10 years. I know exactly, if that test fails, I know exactly why. Third test, multiple rows. So some people might think, well, you only need that third one because I want to make sure that if I've got multiple people in multiple scenarios, they're still going to return. If that fails, though, you don't know why. All you're testing there is that multiple rows will still allow it to work. If it fails and the first test fails for someone who's worked here for more than 10 years, then by fixing the first one, you're going to fix the last one. Hopefully that makes sense. Yes.
Yeah. So what you're saying is here, in order to prove your code is right with your tests, you are putting contrived data into your database. So you'll have a record that is going to pass the first test but not pass any others.
Yes.
You'll have one record that fails the second test but doesn't, or it will pass the second test, which means it won't be included.
Yes.
Because you will write a test to say, show me a row that should not be in my report.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly that.
Cool. Excellent. So you've got to have a strong understanding of the data
yes.
that you're working with, and then making up representative rows to make sure that the right rows are picked up by your code.
Exactly that. Thank you very much for clarifying. So, then you need to source control it. So what is source control? We'll have a look at some tools to use and how do you source control. So what is source control? I grabbed this off Wikipedia, but for those of you who don't know, it's basically a repo where all your history of all the changes you make are stored, basically. What tools you use are now, when I first used to do this session, it was limited, but now basically 99% of people I think use Git. You can use Bitbucket, TFS, there's loads of them. I am going to be demoing with Azure Data Studio, but you can use Redgate SQL Source Control that sits in the middle, which again makes it nice. Yes, I am a friend of Redgate, so I do tend to promote their tools because I do think they're great. Everything I'm doing today though is using free tools. I did some research and there are other source control tools out there that also you can use. Finally, continuous integration. So again, what is it? Why do we use it? And what tools can we use? So what is it? Again, stolen from Wikipedia, but basically it gives the ability for all developers to put all their code into one place and confirm that all the code works together. All unit tests that have been written will run every time a build happens, so that you know that if you've just had to change a store procedure, you haven't made a breaking change on someone else's code, or it hasn't broken something else. You have to make a change in a table. It confirms everything is still hanging together and working correctly. So yes, it integrates all the developers' code, checks everything works together, and runs all tests every time. I always do this. I always get ahead of myself. Apologies for that. So what tools? Again, I'm using Azure DevOps for this, which I'm also using Azure. I will be demoing with Azure Data Studio, which links into Azure DevOps, which links into Git, and that's what I'll be doing. But you can also use things like TeamCity, Bamboo, Jenkins, and there are many, many more. So any comments now before I jump into some demo?
No, there seems to be a little bit of is TFS bigger than Git conversation going on. Daniel says, don't create a table called user in a schema called user.
Yeah, but did you know you can create a table called hash in a schema called hash and a column called hash? Because you showed me.
I think I did. Yeah.
Right, so I just need to find.
Daniel's provided a link to a list of useful object names. If you're stuck for an object, we've got a list of names that we can use there.
Oh, thanks. Right, so I'm in Azure Data Studio.
I misunderstood Daniel's message. It's a list of things we shouldn't use.
Oh, okay. I'm in Azure Data Studio using a Jupyter notebook. Thank you very much for Rob for giving me a crash course in this. For demo purposes, it's brilliant. I love it. So this is where I pray to the demo gods, though. What I'm going to be doing here is I have a database that is source controlled with Git. So if I go to here, you can see here my DBA demo code repo, which is linked to the project I'm working on. This is my project. In here, it's called demo, but you can link it to the project. This is the project that I'm working on. If I go to, this is where Rob's cringing because
it may well have been a select star node, but that's there purely for us to demonstrate why we shouldn't do it.
yes.
Hold that thought. You will see it disappear.
So I'm in the DBA code demo repo. So the first thing, I'm going to go through the things that I said that you shouldn't do. So we're going to run this first. We're in demo database. We're doing a select star. Yes, you are correct. We shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to show you why not. So I'm just going to run this block. She says, please work. If not, I've got one that I prepared earlier. Why aren't you running? No, don't do this to me.
Are you connected?
No, my laptop's crashed.
Uh-oh. Max is working over here.
Okay. Keep waiting, please.
People are having a minor breakdown about the lack of indenting in your code and your layout.
Yeah, all right.
I would bin ADS and start again.
I can't even bin it.
Right click on the toolbar. Down. No, actually on the icon on the toolbar.
So much for me praying to the demo gods. They didn't answer my prayers. Just amongst yourself for a minute. I'll be back in a second.
That stop process came out very quickly, Rob. It's like you're a professional at it.
Can someone tell me how I'm doing on time?
You've used up 33 minutes of time.
Okay, that's all right.
So we're doing fine.
Okay.
There we are, that's looking better.
That's better. Right,
Is it?
so I hope
Or
so.
not.
Well, at least
Well,
my
I'll
mouse
run
is
it, see what
moving.
happens.
Yeah, so let's run this code and see what happens.
That
So,
pressed. There we go, connection. That's what didn't come up last time.
yeah.
Oh, we're going to Silverstone, aren't we?
Yeah. For anyone who knows me, I am a Formula One fan, so my instances are named after tracks that I've been to. So this is Silverstone. I've also got Monza.
All right.
And that's it. So while this is running, this is now finished. And
Don't think it has.
no, okay, so now it's
getting
finished.
close.
So it's returned 5,058 rows, which I think is quite a lot for what I've asked for.
It's a whole lot of bonus given out to all your long-serving staff.
I know. And it took 14 seconds to run, which is a bit poor. And the person has 500,000 logical reads. That's a bit poor. Now, if we actually look at the data, which I can't see, yeah, there we go. In here, you'll see that it's duplicated because the salary table we're looking at is all salaries and we only want the latest one. So, okay, there's something I need to do. But also, my select star has caused this to be slow. So I'm going to rewrite it. So V2, no select star, whoever it was who mentioned it, no select star. And I'm now grouping, and I should now be returning the right amount of rows. So if we run this block of code, we should just return the first name, the last name, the start date, and their latest salary. And no, it's not indexing, I apologise. So now we're down to 1128. So that's looking a bit more like it. And obviously this might mean that management go and say, well, we're going to go for 20 years, not 10 years, but that's something else. But we've still got our 500,000 logical reads, because just removing the set start isn't going to help with that. So what are we going to do? We need to look at indexing. So all I've done here is index on primary and foreign keys. So while I run this, it does take about a minute to run. So conversation, Mr. Allen.
Well,
Who should do the indexing?
I honestly don't mind who does it, so long as there is a clear discussion that it belongs to someone. This shouldn't wave around in the breeze and be left down to, oh, well, they do it, assuming that everybody else is responsible and you're not.
So we've got a comment here from...
If there are people who are capable and understand it in the dev team, why not?
Yeah, agree.
If the DBAs are the only professionals on the block who know about performance tuning, and they have the wider experience of systems sharing the server, then perhaps they have got a lead on it. What are you laughing at?
Alex saying sales team.
Sales team, yeah. Well, if they've got budget, let them in.
Well, now that's run, so I'm going to run the next block.
So just before you disappear, we've chosen to create clustered indexes there on the columns in each table that is in the join in the query that we're running.
Yes.
We haven't considered other workloads on this database.
Nope.
We haven't considered other queries that might be very similar in syntax that we could help out, and we haven't considered what indexes already existed.
No.
We are looking purely at the code that we've just run.
Looking purely at this store procedure.
Right.
So I'm going to rerun the code that I had previously.
Indexes in source control. That's an interesting question, Richard. Each database, in my experience, will be different. It depends where it's come from. If this is a homegrown, and obviously in the scenario we're talking about, this is a system that we're building from front to back, top to bottom, left to right, whichever way we build our diagram, then we own the code for the databases, and wherever we keep our database code, we should have the index code. Obviously, when you do a restore of a database, the indexes are going to come back with it. So they're effectively in the backups, but if you define your database and you source control your database, yeah, indexes should be in there as well. I would totally agree.
Okay, so we finished that running that code. We've still got our 1128. We're now down to 224 milliseconds. So we've gone from 14 seconds to 224 milliseconds. More importantly, we're down to 10,000 logical reads. So we've just lost nearly 500,000 logical reads. So that I'm a lot happier with. So now we've got this, we actually can convert this into a store procedure. So as you can see here, it's now in a store procedure. Sorry, the layout is still pants. But I have put a code comment block in here with the release history and all the rest of it. So if I were to run this code now, it would create this store procedure in the database, but it won't add it to my project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my project. This is where, Rob, I'm praying, I'm doing everything as you told me. I'm going to add a store procedure, going to call it get long service employees, and I'm going to put my code in here, connect it to my server, and then this now adds it to both the database and the project. So we can see here under store procedures, yep, there we go. We've got our get long service employees. And if we go to our database connection, the demo database, no, it's not a table, is it? It's a store procedure. We've got our get long service employees, so it's added it to both. So before we do the unit test, I'm having to do things a little bit differently to what you would do in the real world because of how long things take to run. So I'm going to kick off my build now and then show you unit tests. Normally I would run the unit tests, build a new environment, probably using, this is where you can leverage containers, which would build a new database, run all the tests, and prove that everything's working. What I'm doing for this is just building a new database in Azure with my new store procedure to prove that this works. So on here, you can see I've got 2 changes in my source control. I click on that and it tells me that my changes are my get along service employees code, and I've made a change to the project. So I can either put a message in here, which will affect both blocks, or I can click on the plus and it just affects one. So I'm going to put a comment in here, needed by the business, and tick it. And yes, I want to save all and commit. Yes, I know these aren't great comments. I've done both of them. And then down the bottom, you can see I've got 2 changes to push. So I'm going to push those and pull any fresh commits that have gone. And that will now automatically kick off a build for me, which we will go to in a minute because it's going to take a minute to run. While that's going, we'll just have a look at our unit tests.
And this is T-SQL-T. This unit test is the free framework from...
Yeah, this is all in T-SQL-T. Due to time, I'm not going to show you. I've got 4 minutes left, I think. So I'm not going to be able to show you downloading all the rest of it. Go to T-SQL-T. It's really, really easy. I would only run it on a development environment, though, because there are things that you need to run, like enabling CLR, that you wouldn't want in a production environment. So the first thing to do is create a new test class. Now, that would normally be the name of the object that you're testing. And when you look in Object Explorer, it looks like a schema name. So let's create that. So I need to select my connection and run it. Now I've got 3 unit tests. So the first one, I'm going faking my 4 tables I need. Those are the 4 tables I reference in store procedure. I'm faking my employee table. I've got 4 rows in here. Don't worry, I'm only using one of them in these. I've got Ferris Bueller. He is ID 1. ID 1 started 15 years ago. I have to create what's going to go into my expected table and my actual table. And what we're going to do is compare what's in expected with in actual. So I'm going to populate my expected table with Ferris Bueller. He started 15 years ago and what his salary is. I'm then going to insert into my actual temporary table the output of the get log service employees. Then what T-SQL-T does, it runs this command assert equals table, and it compares what's in the expected temporary table with the actual temporary table. And if it fails, it gives us a message. So let's run that. So that's done. My next unit test is exactly the same, except now Ferris Bueller has only worked here for 9 years. So I'm going to run that. And have we created? We have created. And now I've got a multi-row one. So I've got 3 employees. So Ferris Bueller has been here 15 years. Marty McFly has been here 9 years. And Joe Black has been here 5 years. So we're only expecting Ferris Bueller to be returned. So we put those 3, the Ferris Bueller, into our expected table. What I didn't show you is that up here, where we're not expecting a record, we've got nothing going into our expected table. So we run that, and that's done. And now if we run all 3 tests, and we can do that by running the test class and naming it. Hopefully, yeah, so we've run 3 and all 3 have been successful. So that is a massive crash course in unit testing. So let's now quickly go to our Azure DevOps environment. And if we go to our repo in our store procedures, let's refresh that. There you go. We've got our get long service employees, which is in the wrong place, but never mind. I've obviously done something wrong there. But let's look in our pipeline, and you can see here that, yeah, that's the one that I've just done because it ran 3 minutes ago. And this has built us, that's successfully finished, and it has built us a new database. So if we go back to Azure Data Studio and go to our connections, this is my Azure connection that I have built. And in here, under store procedures, we have got our get long service employees store procedure. So doing this whole process, we've run unit tests and we've built an environment and we've put our new store procedure up there. Now, what I should also do is make a change to the table. So I push them up so all the indexes can go like it has been muted.
When were you planning to do the set select demo?
Right now.
Okay, cool.
This is only
Heads up, Jeff.
2 seconds. So with set and select, what I've done here, I've got a variable and I've set my variable to some value. Then I've
Select it back out.
selected it back out, yeah. Then I'm going to do a select from my cars table to show what it would get. And then I'm selecting that variable equal to be the output of getting make ID from carsware 999. And you can see what goes wrong. So if we run this against demo, you can see that my variable of some value has come down here. That's correct. You can see we've got no rows returned for ID 999, but our variable has come back with some value, which is what it was set as to previously. It hasn't been updated.
So it hasn't been set to null. It hasn't been reinitialized at all. It's still got the old value that was lingering.
That's it.
From who knows where in your code.
Yeah. So hence why I don't use it. Oh, Dan, like that one. So that was a massively quick crash course in what we've been doing. So let's go back to PowerPoint. That's our demo done. Ideally now, when management come rushing up to you and say, can you do a change? You've had communications with the DBA. They know how you run everything. And they're going to be, yes, it's fine, because I know you're going to release in a robust way. Any questions?
No. What have we got? There's been a bit of a chat regarding ADS and VS Code projects and Visual Studio and Management Studio. So that's all kicking off. But Rob's handling that one, which is very good. Thank you, Rob. I'm not sure why or what exactly blew Daniel's mind, but I hope he's okay. Chris is advising people to start playing T-SQL-T to read the Redgate.
Oh, that was written by Dave Green.
10 things I wish I'd known when I started.
Yeah, it's good.
I wonder how many people have done that. Yeah. Set select bug or intentional awareness. It is acknowledged and expected behavior, Nige. So it's not a bug at all. It's the way that set and select work, and it's a thing that you need to know before you cart about using either or both in the same piece of code. Daniel once worked somewhere where they used identity instead of scope identity, so they're inserting rows into one table with the wrong values. Ouch, that must have been a nightmare to pick apart. So there we go. Yeah, any final questions on items that we've covered, questions that you would like us to respond to or to?
Rob's going to be starting in, I think it's about 15 minutes. Jonathan and I will be here in the interim on the chat, so yeah, we're happy to chat with you while that's going on. That's absolutely fine.
I dropped a T-SQL-T link into the chat if people want to go and find that, but it is just tsqlt.org.
Yeah.
Go grab that one. You can see we've both got emails at sqlsouthwest.co.uk, so get through us through the user group
or through Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter's usually a good one. Usually quick to respond.
Just don't DM us.
Nige, don't start. It's too late in the evening on a Friday to have that discussion. But of course, Jam goes underneath.
And basically, thank you for listening. Have you got the feedback slide to put back up?
Yes, give me 2 seconds to reshare screens.
Oh, hang on, I will stop sharing mine.
Jeffrey's quite pleased with the presentation. He said it was really great. Thank you. So appreciate your response there, Jeffrey. Alex, can you drop the feedback link in so that people who want to give some feedback can do that now again,
please? Yeah, they're just doing that. I'm just trying to figure out how to stop sharing my screen.
So I'm just going to force it.
Okay.
Richard, if set select is intentional, is the argument about using one over the other or just understanding the difference? Understand the difference. Only use set to set the value in a T-SQL variable. If you use select and that select fails, you will not have nullified the value. You will not have a value that would trip an error handler. It's just going to have its old value in it. And that is potentially going to lead you down the wrong path. So knowing, understanding set and select and using them both in the right place is important. Super awesome, very engaging from Richard. Thank you both, always a pleasure from Daniel. Lisa, thanks to everybody. Yeah, really enjoyed it. I mean, it was a bit different. Instead of me watching this, me being here, like, I don't know whether I was Jeremy Paxman, Jeremy Vine, or Jeremy Springer, but yeah, it's a bit of a chin wag and a few.
I think it was a great dynamic. It really brought it to life.
Well, as I say, we had to revisit how we ran it, and I had to revisit how it was run, and I thought this would make a good way, because we both have different opinions on how things should happen. So we thought it might work, and hopefully people have enjoyed it.
Certainly people have enjoyed it, and
Very much so.
Thank you very much for attending, everybody who was there. 17 people. Thank you very much.
Yes, and we have 4 people watching on YouTube as well.
Oh, grand. So that's view only on YouTube, is it? They've got no option to
comment. No, unfortunately not.
I suppose they can drop comments into the YouTube.
Yes, we've not seen anything yet.
We don't see them here.
Yeah, there's a chat on YouTube, and we're watching it. And if anything comes in on the chat on YouTube, we'll copy it across and let you know. But so far, nothing. But like I said, it's only a handful of people watching there.
Well, we're going to hang around to watch Rob anyway, and we'll be here in the gap.
Rob anybody?
Rob anybody, yeah. Now, that's from Terry Pratchett. So have you got any help in there, Rob? Have you got 2 little helpers come to annoy you?
I think
You're muted there, Rob.
No, your mouse moving and no sound is coming out.
I'm curious if it's a West Country thing. That I'm looking at Jonathan and I'm looking at Rob. Do you all just have the most fantastic beards?
Definitely.
Yay!
There we go. Lovely.
Perhaps if you move to the west, Alex, your beard would grow. Perhaps it's the air or the moisture down there.
Maybe. I'm stuck over here on the east of England. We're all close.
Yeah. Could be it. Oh, nice one, Sam. I prefer VS Code because we're not allowed to install. What's the thing you need for?
Java.
Yeah, no, not Java. What do you need for notebooks?
.NET.
Jupyter.
Yes.
Yeah, we're not allowed to install anything that lets us have notebooks. So I'm a VS Code person.
How does that work with the latest version of SSMS, where it sneaks ADS in the background?
We don't have the latest version of SSMS. That's how that works.
Yeah, I was not impressed when that started appearing on machines. I had to explain to people, no, don't use that. It's nice, but there's reasons we don't want you using it at the
Who
moment.
needs anything past version 12 anyway?
I have to say, as I said, Rob gave me a crash course in using it a very short while ago. And for demoing, it was absolutely brilliant. Because also I had a bit of a nightmare because it crashed, but you've still got the last time you ran it up there. So if I couldn't get a connection or whatever, I can still show you what happened. I just think it's really
Python.
neat.
That's what's needed, isn't it? You need Python to get notebooks working, and we're not allowed to install Python. We have it in the company. It's just that DBA team are not allowed to install Python.
Can't be trusted with snakes.
If a developer installs it on your machine,
I don't know anybody who knows where I live to come and install it.
I forgot. Yes, remote working.
Yeah.
Log me in. They can do it remotely.
Yeah. There's enough that happens remotely.
Right, we'll stop the camera now because you don't need to see us, and we will go on mute. But we're here to answer questions until Rob gets started. And thank you all for attending our session, and enjoy Rob's. I know it'll be brilliant.
Yes, well, thank you very much, both of you. And, I'm sure if people have questions, they'll be in touch.
Yeah, that was really good fun. Thanks, folks.
It was really good.
No problem at all.
Press mute.
There we go. Right. I've just forgotten. Will we starting Rob's session on the hour?
I think that was the plan.
I think that was the plan, yes. I sent the times out to speakers. I'm pretty sure it was 5 past the hour and on the hour for the next session. So, Rob, you all ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Brilliant. So, a gentleman whose beard needs no introduction, Mr. Rob Sewell, finishing off data relay for this year. Another classic Southwest speaker, who's now going to talk to you about all the newness that is Azure Arc data services across Azure and your on-premise databases. So I'll now let Rob take over.
Rob, your audio seems a little bit low at this end. I don't know if anyone else is finding that.
How about now?
That's better, thank you.
So it's that beautiful game of feedback and volume. How about that?
There we go.
Does that look like a PowerPoint presentation?
It sure does.
It does, Ben.
Excellent. So, hello. Thank you so much for having me at Data Relay, and also thank you for not having to traipse around the country in a van and be extraordinarily tired on Friday night. So I get to talk to you about Azure Arc enabled data services. And this presentation is also has a subtitle of Why Everything Must Be Named Ben, which will become obvious in a while. We're going to fly through relatively quickly, but feel free to interrupt me with questions. Otherwise, you'll find my contact details there. So at SQLDBA with a beard is the best way to get in touch with me on Twitter. Always happy to answer questions. My name's Rob. I'm a dual MVP. I work as a consultant and automating and helping people to deliver changes for their data platform. I do a load of stuff. There we go. So let's head right into the presentation. Why Azure Arc enabled data services? What is it for? So these people, Flexera, did a state of the cloud report. And what they found is that from the people that responded, 2% just used a private cloud. They only had stuff in their own data centers. Nearly 20% used everything in the public cloud. But the vast majority in the middle use a bit of both, use a bit of everything. And I think that's a pretty common scenario for people. And this is where Azure Arc enabled data services can be of benefit. Because our services live everywhere. So they live in the cloud, in Azure, or AWS, or GCP. They live in our data centers. They live in Kubernetes clusters. They live on a server under somebody's machine, under somebody's desk. And our management of all of those things is everywhere. Which tool do I need to do to look after that service or this service? Or our company has bought three other companies in the last 6 months, and they're things we have to access in a different way. We have this toolbox and we kind of throw our hand in and hope we come up with the right tool to get to the place where we need to fix or look at. But Azure Arc enabled data services lives anywhere. You can use it in a connected scenario. So it is connected up to Azure. The name gives it away, Azure. The benefits are that it's always current. So you're always kept up to date with the latest SQL, what Microsoft are calling evergreen SQL. You get all the beauty of the cloud. So you get elastic scale. You can deploy in seconds. You can scale up and scale down. It's amazing for automation. So one of the reasons I enjoy playing with it so much. But you get a unified management pane. So you've got a one view for all of your SQL instances, whether they're on-prem or in a cloud, whether that cloud is AWS or GCP or in Azure. In your data center, it's all based on Kubernetes. Kubernetes is a thing that's looking after all of this. And whilst that sounds like, I don't really know Kubernetes, I don't know containers, how is that all going to help me? It's okay. We can use Azure. There's our Azure portal. And we can use Azure Data Studio. Beautiful tooling that we use and we know. We don't need to know Kubernetes to be able to use this. Somebody will have needed to set up a Kubernetes cluster, but you don't go and set up a data center. You don't go and set up Azure or GCP or AWS. Those are already set up and looked after by somebody else. You make use of the service on them, and Azure Arc Enabled Data Services does the same thing. Here's how it works. Here are the guts of it. This is what happens. There is a data controller, and the data controller holds all of the things. They're all different pods, containers, holding code that enables you to have dashboards, metrics, logs, takes control of backup and restore, enables high availability, automation of provisioning, all with an API. And as I said, there are two connectivity modes. So you have direct connected. Your data controller is connected to Azure and syncs up information or syncs down tasks. Or you can have indirectly connected, which means that when you choose to, if you wish to, you can then push all of that information up into Azure. You can have everything sat in its own individual place. Think of ships or lorries or mines or nuclear power stations or things that you want to keep separate. Those are the places where maybe this might be used. The data services that we have are Azure Arc Enabled Managed Instance. So SQL Server's managed instance experience, evergreen SQL, running in your own data center, on your own equipment, or in Azure or Google or AWS. And at the moment, Azure Arc Enabled Postgres SQL is the other offering. Maybe more will come in the future. So how do we deploy? Well, we use tools that I know. Azure Data Studio. You can use the Azure Data CLI, which you can use to interact with your Azure data services in Azure. And you can use straight hard Kubernetes. If you just want to go straight right down to the command line and go Kubernetes, you can do that as well. Whichever it is that's easiest for you. Now, because we are using a container, we can specify different storage for our data. So in the same way as within our data center, we might say to our storage team, yep, I want a load of backup. I want 4 terabytes of backup space, please. And yeah, it just needs to be there and to be able to be written to. But I want my temp DB and I want that on the fastest storage you could possibly give me, please, because that's really important. In the same way, you can enable different storage classes for your containers, for your data services. You can have local storage, which is on the node where your data controller is running. Or you can have remote storage, which could be anywhere. This opens up a lot of possibilities that a lot of companies who do backup and recovery and high availability below the scenes are going to take use of. Keep an eye on that as it comes through. We've got our metrics sat in the portal. There's our Azure portal showing the metrics of my Benji managed instance that is literally running down there on a NUC in my office, in my data center, if you like. I have the logs. There's my SQL Server log from a managed instance available to me in Azure. But we also have it built in locally. So we don't need to be connected to Azure to get that. Here we have metrics that are built in. They're super good. It's all using Grafana. The logs, searchable logs, all built in using Kibana. So that's the slides done. We're going to fly through the slides real easy. What I'm going to do, because I often forget to come back to these slides, is I'm going to give you some resources now. Now, one resource you're going to want to know about is where can I find these slides and this code? So beard.media/presentations. That's going to take you to my GitHub repository, my presentations repo, and you can find this presentation and many others there. Feel free to go and use them as you wish. If you're going to be interested in looking at Azure Arc enabled data services, I highly, highly recommend that you have a look at the book Azure Arc enabled data services revealed, based on the public preview. My friends Anthony Nocentino and Ben Weissman have written this book, and not only does it give you an introduction and understanding of what Azure Arc enabled data services is, but it is actually an excellent introduction to Kubernetes and how pods and nodes and services and deployments and stateful sets and all of this other language that we use, what they mean. You can also find docs.microsoft and an Azure Jumpstart, Azure Arc Jumpstart.io, which will have some, what's the word? Demos is the word I'm looking for. Some demos that you can follow along to be able to work with Azure Arc enabled data services. That is how you get in touch with me if you wish to have any questions. What we'll do now is we will end the show. And now somebody's going to have to give me that information that we need, which is this all big enough? And please feel free to jump in at any point. So the first thing I'm going to show is a visualization of what my Kubernetes cluster looks like. So this uses something called Weave. And in Weave, we can see, if we look at the system, we can see that you got all of this stuff that is running Kubernetes. So if we look here, we've got our kube controller, we've got our API server. You can see this is running on Beard Linux. So that's the master node that's doing all of my controlling. And I can't use Zoom it today. And if we look at the Arc AZ namespace, where I've got all of my Arc infrastructure, what you can see is that there's a lot of things here. So we've got metrics. We've got, this is an MI here. Here's our Benji MI with a logs and a data set of storage. We've got our controller. This is our data controller. This is the one that's ensuring that everything is as it should be. Making sure that we're doing all of our backup if need be, or a high availability if need be. But again, you don't need to worry about this, because if you wish to create an Azure Arc enabled data service, it's as simple as doing something like this. So what I might do actually is move that panel to the bottom. There we go. So we're going to set ourselves up a username and a password. Put those in as environmental variables. And then we're going to run this one piece of code. AZ data, Arc, SQL, MI, create. Create me an Azure Arc enabled data services SQL managed instance, please. And I'll give it a name of data relay. And I would like to use my storage class for my data is going to be Ben's local storage. It's just the name of a storage class. And for my logs, I'm going to use the same storage class. And then what I'd like is I'd like you to request 2 CPUs and limit me to 4 CPUs. And I'd like to request 10 gigabytes of RAM and limit to 16 gigabytes of RAM. So here is another look at our Kubernetes infrastructure. And what you can see here is that we have our pods. So again, they're all named. There's an MI. Here is our controller. There are all of our metrics, management proxy. And when we run, thank you, Docker. When we run this code, it's going to run off and it's going to go and do what it needs to do. So it's going to use this environment variable and it's going to use this password and it's deploying the data relay MI in the namespace RKZ. And if I refresh my pods, you could see, you saw it ping in just then. Here we have data relay 0, a data relay 0 pod. Now, even though it's green, we don't actually have everything running just yet. So we've got 2 of our 3 pods are running. If we go back and look at our infrastructure, are you going to be live? Shall I just refresh you anyway? Let's refresh you anyway. And what we will see is here. Here is our data. Oops, here is, I told you I was being rubbish at Zoom it today. Here is my data relay with my 3 containers. And here is my storage. And these are the connections I've got. If I look over here, you see it says it's running, gives me my internal IP. And I have 3 containers. So I have arc-SQL MI. That is my container that runs my SQL server. That is my SQL server container. I've got collectd and I've got FluentBit. Those are Azure Arc enabled things that enable everything to work. So hopefully, having shown you that, my data relay MI is ready. So if I run AZ data, Arc, SQL, endpoint list for the data relay MI, it's going to show me what endpoints I have available for me. And it tells me that I've got a SQL managed instance and that is running at this IP address and port. And I have a log search dashboard that's running in Kibana. And I have a metrics dashboard that's running in Grafana. So I could click those links, but we've already got that open. So what I need to do, good remembering, Rob, is I need to remember to copy this IP address and port. So later in a demonstration, please remind me if I forget to do this. I'm going to set some credentials. Now, they say Ben's credentials, and it's called Ben Admin. And that's because Ben Weissman, who wrote the book, is the person that enabled me to get my demos working. Every point I had a problem, we would work something out, and I would jokingly name the storage Ben's local storage, and then it worked. And I would jokingly name the MI Ben MI with the changes he told me, and then it worked. So that is why this demonstration is known as why everything should be named Ben. So I remember to paste that in there? I didn't. There we go. So I'm going to set my SQL instance and I'm going to connect with DBA tools. There we go. Easy as that. And I'm going to set this default parameter so that every DBA tools command that's got a SQL instance parameter uses this connection. It's not the name of the instance, notice. It is actually an already open instance with the credentials. So let's have a look at the databases that we've got. And what we've got, as you would expect, is SQL instance called data relay-0 and master temp model and MSDB. So how can I restore my database on there? There's a number of ways of doing it, but the easiest way for me right now is to copy an AdventureWorks backup into my container. So that's what this command does. kubectl, the command line infrastructure for working with Kubernetes. CP is copy. I'm going to copy the AdventureWorks backup. I'm going to put it in the data relay pod at var opt MS-SQL backups and the container arc SQL MI in the namespace arc-az. So let's run all of that. Copy this backup across to my container, and it works really quickly. And it doesn't work really quickly now, which is awesome. Thanks for that. I did this 3 times this morning and it was red pink. Do. I can't really dance. Are you actually copying? This is the question. Oh, no idea what's happening. Let's have a look at our Grafana whilst we wait. So if we look at Grafana, you can see that at the moment I'm connected to Benji01, and we have our other instances, the ones that we've created, ones that I have just created, and one that I created earlier. And this is our Grafana dashboard. And you see it's running live, and I've had a workload running against my Benji MI. So I can see how many batch requests we've been using. I can see what my wait statistics have been like. I can dive into always on, or what my buffer cache looks like. Is really super. You've got all sorts of information here, and you can print it if you accidentally press that button. Oh, that's wonderful. Let's see. Let's have a look on the container with get DBA file. Have we got the thing? I think it actually worked. It just never gave me back a prompt. So you can see we've used get DBA file. We've looked in our data relay instance, and we found in the backups directory that we've got our AdventureWorks. I'm just going to use DBA tools. And I'm just going to restore the database. So I'm just going to restore the database. Awesome. Look at this. Rob's demo is failing. It appears to be from Anyway, that's absolutely how you do it. I'm going to just delete this MI. Oh, I just deleted an MI, just like that. And I'm going to show you a different way of interacting. Remember I said you can do it in a number of different ways. And one way you don't want to do it is at the command line. Some people, it's not a comfortable place to be. Maybe you'd be happier doing it in Azure Data Studio. So do we have any queries running? No, we have nothing running at the moment. So in Azure Data Studio, we have in our servers list, which is this one here.
Sure.
Sounds like there's half a question. Nope. Okay, carrying on. We have our Azure Arc controllers. So I'm going to click on Manage, and that is going to show me my Azure Arc data controller with the resources I've got. So you can see I've got a managed instance called Benji. And perhaps what I want to do is do some work with it. So maybe instead of being on that demo, we could run a workload. So let's just run a random workload. Haha. Nope, that should be right. Let's make sure we've got an instance name. I've just put the wrong instance name in. Nope, I haven't. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I'm going to run a workload. So this is just going to run 1,000 jobs parallel at 30. So if we go and have a look at our managed instance and we change this to 5 minutes, you can see here that immediately our user connections have started to go up. So if we refresh this, you can see that we're starting to get some information about our query that's going. See how many batch requests we're doing. So at the moment, we've had a max of 823 and a low average because it's over these 5 minutes. And this is ticking along. And maybe we're thinking, well, this is rubbish. I'd wish it went a bit quicker. I think if I gave it more CPU, this would be much quicker. So if I click on my instance, here we can see that we can see what our endpoint is, and we can see the links for our dashboard. And we also have this button here. It says compute and storage. And at the moment, it's got CPU request of 2 and a limit of 4. Well, let's see. Has my managed instance completed? Yes, it's completed. So if I come to here and I think, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to double that. So I'm going to have that at 4, and I'll put this up to 8. No, you know what? I'm going to have 6 CPUs, all of the CPUs. And we'll take this up to 14. I can't remember how much RAM my Nook's got, but if it breaks, it breaks. We can fix it. I change this value, and I can click save. And it says down here at the bottom, oops, it says down here, no, it says down here at the bottom, updating instance Benji. So if we come back and have a look at our pods, and you can see that Benji at the moment only has two containers running in its pod. So this means that this Arc SQL MI container has been shut down and is being redeployed with a new set of resources. So whilst this is happening, if I try to run this code, it's going to come back and say, I don't have a connection yet. And come back and go, no, there's nothing there. It takes a minute to time out. So whilst it's really cool, I can just scale up and down, it is a bit of downtime. And in a minute, this is going to fail. And it'll say, no, we're not ready yet. There we go. Connection failed because the connected party didn't respond, because I only have 2 containers. My Arc SQL MI container is not up and running. Hang on a minute, Rob. You've just thrown away my production database. My AdventureWorks production database was sat on this instance. I wonder. Yeah, we go. See, we're still open. There we are. So there's Benji. This is a static thing. So there's my AdventureWorks database. What's happened to my data? Well, remember, I said that in Weave, if we looked at Benji, oh, totally failing to find anything today. Right, where's Benji? If we looked at Benji, here is our Benji container. Our Benji container, the Arc SQL MI, actually has 2 lots of storage, data and logs. We haven't changed that. We've added a new container, but we've kept our storage separate, basically reattaching our storage to our instance. And it's all happening magically in the background. So if I refresh this, we're at 3 of 3. I can run exactly the same workload again. And this time I could come back into my dashboard, and we'll see that this time, what did we have? 823 and 262 max, and it took that long. Well, with twice as many CPUs, I wonder if it's going to be quicker. And it doesn't always go quicker. Sometimes it's a little bit different. But you can see that my wait statistics have changed. You can see that I've got different information in my buffer pool. So then maybe this test isn't quite right. But you can see that things are happening. Well, it turns out that looks like it's gone a little bit longer and I haven't got any max. So maybe it wasn't CPU that was my problem after all. Maybe it was something else. But you can see I can analyze your workload. Okay, I've finished that. Maybe I just want to set this back. And guess what? Setting this back is as easy as this. Well, I can't remember what it was at. Let's put it on that. We change our values and we hit save. How cool is this? How easy is this for us to use? To be able to just scale up and scale down our managed instance straight from Azure Data Studio without any worries. Anybody could do this if they had the right permissions to be able to do it. So what I meant to do before I did that was to show you that AdventureWorks is still running, but you could see that it was still running because my queries were starting running again. So that hopefully is enough proof for you to see. So that's on-prem. Now, as I said, I've been running some workload against this managed instance using exactly this. There is the code, just do me some random things, do a random sleep and run. And I'm running my data center, my NUCs in my office in disconnected mode. And that means that what I need to do is to upload my metrics and my logs and my usage into the Azure portal. And I did this with a script, just using a while loop. But you could use a scheduled job. Maybe if you're in a proper disconnected mode, you're going to run this as a scheduled job in your disconnected environment. You're going to copy these files over to somewhere that's allowed to connect to the internet, and then you're going to upload them. That's what you need. Maybe when your truck gets back to the depot, that's what will happen. So what we do is we do an AZ data ARC DC data controller export, and we export our metrics into a file, and I put the force in case the file still exists. And if I've got a file, then I upload it. So I use AZ data ARC DC data controller upload and the path to my file. And that will then upload my data into the Azure portal, both into the metrics on my managed instance and into my log analytics workspace. You have to provide the information for your workspace ID and a key to be able to do this, which I don't show here, but you can look in the docs to find out how to do this. So let's have a look in the portal. So here we are, we're in the portal. And if Rob can get this right, there we go. So we're in the portal, we're in my ARC data resource group, and you can see that I've got a log analytics workspace called Logalytics. I've got my Benji managed instance, and I've got my Beard ARC data controller. So if I look at my managed instance, it shows me a little bit of information about it. I can do some alerting. I can look at my metrics. If I look at my metrics, I have transactions per second, and you can see how long my workload has been running. Got some information here, which means that you can do something like this. You can put this information onto a dashboard in the portal, and this is live. So if we can refresh it, it's going to show us what's been happening. Use that information. And we can also look at our logs. So our logs would live in our log analytics workspace. And what you will find there is that you have, we'll close that one, is you've got some custom logs here. So we've got custom logs, and in our custom logs, we've got our Postgres instance ones, our SQL managed instance, and other things that I've logged into here as well. And you could create yourself a workbook. So we could create a workbook. Let's just refresh this. This is my workbook that I might keep in my Azure data resource group. It's going to connect to my log analytics. It might be for all of my managed instances on my fleet of trucks or my submarines or my ships or my nuclear power stations or my oil rigs or those sort of things. And I can look at how many log entries I've got. Maybe I can see how many log entries I'm getting per hour. So you can see that the data relay managed instance actually created me some logs in this hour. How many failed logins have I had per hour? Maybe I want to look at the detail of my failed logins. Oh, this doesn't look so good, does it? Look. So, yeah, but a matter of minutes ago, there was a login failed for the user. I will steal your data. I'll get it somewhere. I'm going to keep trying till I get it. As well as having your logs, you could set up your alerts just like you've got in Azure. If this was a connected environment, you could make use of all that log analytics, Azure monitor goodness for data that you have to keep on-prem in your own data center, which you put in a Kubernetes cluster in a managed instance. We can even look at our logs. So if we have a look at our logs, I think all of these are now going to be for Benji. Yeah, they are. If I'd done this quickly enough, we could have seen both instances in there. But you can get the information about, oh, there we go. So we've got data relay logs, and I've got my Benji logs up here. So you can see this just looks like a SQL Server error log. Got some extra bits that you maybe don't see so often, but it is just there. So this is the goodness of having everything in the portal. Let me come back to here. So let's try one more thing. We've got another type of data service that we can create, and it is an availability group. So you've already seen when we scaled up and scaled down that we could throw away our Benji pod, or our Arc SQL MI container, and it will come back and everything's fine. I mean, I am literally so confident that I can right click on here and click delete. And whilst we're talking, it's going to throw away my Benji pod, the whole thing, the SQL Server and all of the Azure Arc data enabled bits. And in the time I'm talking, it's already recreated it. So wow, that's amazing. You just deleted it. I accidentally deleted a container on purpose, or a pod on purpose, and Azure Arc enabled data services is just going to bring it all back up again. And remember, my data and my logs are all stuck away in storage, and it's going to reconnect those and everything's going to be gorgeous. But actually, it's not really so gorgeous, because this pod is sat on Beard Linux 3. So if Beard Linux 3 falls away, then we've got no Benji. So let's set ourselves some variables, and I'm going to do this in a new session just to make sure I get things right. We're going to set ourselves our connection. I'm going to start it running, and then I'll explain what it's doing. So I'm going to create a 3-node availability group. This time it's going to be called BenAG, and the code looks about the same. So it says AZ data, Arc, SQL, MI, create. All the same. We'll give it a name, BenAG, but we've got this extra bit here, replicas 3. Let's have a look at replicas 3. So if we refresh this and we have a look here. Now on Beard Linux 2, I've got BenAG-0, and on Beard Linux 3, I've got BenAG1 and BenAG2. So I've got 3 pods with my SQL instances in them, and they're actually split across 2 nodes. So if I lose one of my nodes completely, I still have my connection. Another thing that's slightly different here is that we've got 3 of 4 containers running in this pod. So for a normal managed instance, we only had 3 containers. Now we have 4. If we go and have a look whilst that's deploying, we will go and have a look. back into Weave. And if we look at the top here, we've got BenAG1, BenAG0, BenAG2. There's our containers. Again, they've got data and logs, data and logs, data and logs. It's the storage, all sorted. And if we click on one of these and we look over here, you can see, if I do it properly, that we've got another container. So this time we've got Arc HA Supervisor. Guess what that's doing? That's taking care of all of our high availability. So this is a gorgeous thing. Now we've got a proper availability group running as a managed instance in our data center, but we can control, we can alert, we can get, in the future, automated backup and restores. We can do usage, so we can charge back within the business if we need to. Let's have a look. Have we got all 4 running now? Yes. So over here, we have 4 of 4 containers running, and BenAG is ready. So I'm going to list my endpoints again. And this time we're going to see something slightly different. So we've got not just our managed instance connection, but also managed instance readable secondary replicas. Excellent. So we've got a read intent connection as well with a different port number. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to remember to paste it, even though it actually looks exactly the same. It is. And we're going to connect. Let's connect to our managed instance running on 3 replicas. Come on, let's connect. No connection could be made because the, oh, did it really? That's a bit annoying. Let's have a look. Let's try one more time. Did I actually paste it? 631341. Yes, I did. Why? Oh, why are you failing? Oh. Let's right click and have a look at our logs. We'll look at our SQL MI logs. And it does tell me that my container is ready. Okay. Let's have a look in our data controller dashboard. We'll refresh this one. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. There we go. So BenAG is ready. So we can connect to that. If we refresh, it's going to show us our dashboard endpoints and our external endpoint. And what we can do is we can create ourselves a new connection. And we'll connect to Ben admin and it'll be DBA tools. And we'll connect. And that's not going to connect either. Oh, ooh, demo fail. Demo fail, demo fail. Excellent work. So, what a pain. We have a demo fail. So what we will do is we will delete that managed instance and we will try a little trick that Rob knows where he will call it Benji. Benji. Did you delete? Yes, you did delete. And I'm going to run that and ask anybody if there were any questions whilst we're doing that. I can't see the chat. Excellent. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Because that's a lot of information to take in.
We don't have any questions.
There's a question in the chat here. Sorry, Alex, go on.
No, you go on. You spotted it. I didn't.
There's a question in the chat here about Grafana, Rob, about whether or not it's free.
Is Grafana free? I don't know. Go and have a look. I believe it is, but I am no expert. Is it included within your Azure Arc enabled data services? Yes. Right now that's in preview, so there's no cost for that. Costing will come at a later date.
Great. Do you know when is there a date for when this comes out of preview?
I have not been told that date. So yeah, it's
thanks very much.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things. It's in public preview. Are there customers using it in production? Yes, there absolutely are. I promise you, there are customers who are using this in production. Microsoft wouldn't be creating this if it wasn't something that people were using. Is it available for everybody to use in production? No, not yet. Absolutely not yet. But it is moving forward very, very quickly. They release updates every month, so you get new. This 3 replicas is only been about for the last 4 or 5 weeks, so it's a brand new thing.
Wow,
it's super good. Oh, I am so annoyed. I
just
did
while
this.
you're waiting, I mean, sorry, go on.
No, ask the question, please.
Oh, I was just really thinking while you were waiting, just sort of asking the question generally. You see a lot of things, obviously, because a lot of the stuff on the data platform is moving so quickly that you do see a lot of things coming out in public preview. It's interesting that you say that there are people who've got this in production. What's your experience or recommendations even about using preview products in production?
Get Microsoft support. Is absolutely what the idea is. You can imagine that if you're the sort of person or the sort of company that has gone to Microsoft and said, what I really want to be able to do is this, and Microsoft has said, okay, you're paying us a lot of money, we are going to develop this sort of thing for you and see if other people want to use it as well, then it is something that the need was required, and it was able to fulfill that need in its current state. So, and certainly as it moves forward, it's getting better. If your company is the sort that has that sort of unusual requirement, then I would say go to Microsoft and say, hello, we're here. What we want to do is this, and we think that this will work with it. Can you help us? And get that support, rather than going, let's chuck this in production in public preview, and then when we've got a question or something's not working quite right, go to Microsoft and go, hello, we'd like to, we've got a problem with this thing, because you're going to have to fight and battle through a lot of layers of process to be able to get back into the people who are really looking after this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks very much.
You're more than welcome. Right, let's have another go. So let's see what happens if we try. So what I did is I changed the name, because changing the name, remember I said it gave me the same port number, and I thought that was a bit odd. What I do is just, there we go, see. So now we've got a connection. Huh. Thinks, must remember that little trick. So we've got a connection. If we look at our SQL, there we go. We're connected to SQL. Of course, another thing that we need to say, we're running on Linux. This is a container, but it's running on Linux. It doesn't matter, because SQL is SQL is SQL. SQL doesn't care what operating system it's using. So let's see which server name am I connected to. I'm connected to Benji AG0. And what I'm also going to do is grab the read-only endpoint as well, because we'll need that in a minute. So we are running on Benji A0. We look at our availability group. This time I will move it to the right. Let's do that again. So we're in our Benji AG SQL instance, and we've got an availability group. And the availability group is called contained AG. That's all we can do. We've got no control over this. This is provided for us. This is what it is. And you see that this instance is the primary, and that we have some other replicas. Something else that's interesting is you'll notice that we've got some availability databases already in our empty instance. We've got contained AG master and contained AG MSDB. Those are already there available for us or being used for us. What are they? We don't quite know. And have we got a listener? Yep, we've got a listener. Contained AG listener. It's got a name and everything. So let's have a look at our databases. Let's have a look at them in a table so we can read them. When we connect to the table, we just see master, temp, and MSDB. We don't see model, even though we saw those in our availability group databases. If we look at our availability databases in our availability group, we've got our master and we've got our MSDB. And we have a look at our replicas. There we are. We've got our replica 2, our replica 1. These are our secondaries. They're all synchronized and committed and everything's beautiful. So we had our read-only connection. And if we connect with that, and this time we'll have a look at the pod. Remember, primary was on SQL AG, Benji AG 0. Now we're on Benji AG 1. Excellent. So what I'd really like to do is put a database into my availability group. But you can't. Well, you can't using the trick that I did before, where you copy the backup file into the container and restore it, because you can't actually add it into the availability group. Your normal user doesn't have permission to alter the availability group and add a database. But hey, guess what? If you look, you'll find that there is a port 1533, which has an admin connection. Now, not a DAC connection, but an admin connection, a connection which is allowed to alter the availability group. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some Kubernetes. So we've got this file. Let's have a look at this file. Let's have a look at this file. There it is. We've got this file, and this file says, hey, create me a service, please. And we need to make sure that we change that to Benji AG. And we need to change that to Benji AG. The name can stay the same. We need to change that. We need to change that. Okay. So create me a service, please. Give it these labels so we know what it is. Call it Ben AG. In fact, call it Benji AG's admin service. And I want you to connect to the resource SQL managed instance. The controller is the availability group, the name of the MI. And I'd like you to connect to the primary one, please. So the role of the Microsoft AG for the contained AG availability group, I want to connect to primary, please. And then I want you to set port 1533 TCP to 31,000. So we can do that simply by doing this thing called kubectl apply -f and then file, boom, we've got a service created. So this means I can now connect to that service. And I'm going to connect to that service over port 1533 on my container. And if I look at my container, which pod, I'm connected to AG0. If I have a look at my if I look at exec connections, I can see that my column, good work, Rob. Totally failing at all of the things. Let's do that instead. There we go. So my column 1, this is my SPID. I'm SPID 80, which is the top one. If I look at the top one and we go across, hey, look at that. I'm connected to port 1533. You see some other things are connected to 1433. You've got some that are connected to 5022. So that'll be mirroring or perhaps the AG. Yeah, we won't look at those. So now that I'm doing that, I can do the same trick again, except I now need to change the name of my container. And I'm going to push, I'm going to copy my file to the container. It's going to sit there and pretend that it's doing it. Oh, let's see what happens. It's either copied or it hasn't, but we will then restore it. It doesn't look like it's worked. It definitely doesn't look like it's worked. Oh, why won't you just copy? Have I got the right names in there? Yes, I have got the right names in there. This copy that's not working. I think I've used the same name too many times this morning doing demos, and it's got itself in a pickle. Oh. Let's do a get video file, and we'll do slash bar slash op slash SQL. Oh no, we put it in backup. Backup. No, we have got a file. We have a file. And please restore my file. And you're still going to tell me, oh, I wonder. So there's a possibility, because Stu will tell me if I'm wrong, because he wrote this code, that when it's reading the backup header, if it now thinks that my backup from a SQL 29 instance that restored this morning, and then you've seen it has been restored. I wonder if I've updated, my container has been updated in the background. Anyway, what I'm going to show you is that whilst you can't do it with DBA tools, all you need to do is connect with this 1533, restore your database, obviously take a backup, because AdventureWorks is simple by default. And then you can just run the query alter availability group, put in contained AG, and then add the database in. And lo and behold, you will have an AG. Fortunately, demo gods have failed me. But hopefully you can see the way this is going. You've had a quick run through, wrong one. A quick run through of Azure Arc enabled data services, and you can see how you can use it out of the command line, how you can use it in Azure Data Studio. We showed scaling. If you wish to create a new instance, then you can literally just click on some buttons. I accept, and then I'd like to use this data controller. We'll use the name, give it a password for this is for a Postgres. How many workers do we want? What port do we want to use? Which engine version? We have the same sort of thing for our storage settings. Which storage class are we going to use for our data, our logs, our backups? And then the resource settings. How many CPUs do I request? How many am I limited to? Same for memories. And you run all this and you press deploy. And what it does, it creates you a Python notebook in Azure Data Studio. And you just press play and it goes off and deploys everything for you. So you can do it all straight out of Azure Data Studio. You don't need to touch the command line, Kubernetes. You don't need to think about YAML. You can do everything from here. It's very exciting times. It's a very interesting technology. Slightly grumpy that my demos haven't worked, but them's the breaks. It's Friday. And that's me almost at time. So thank you very much for having me, Data Relay. Well done. Congratulations. Now you can all get to go home. Oh, yeah, you're already at home, aren't you? Normally Friday night, I have the shortest drive home and you all have to go much further than me. But I guess we've all got the same walk to our sofas.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rob. Yes, I'm not missing the 4 hours of fighting through New Street to get back from Bristol to Nottingham.
Oh, I bet.
So, yeah. And there's usually no sandwiches at Temple Mead when I get there. Right. Sorry, quick coughing fit. But yeah, thanks. That was a very interesting session. Give us some video up so I can join it. There we go.
Yeah, it was great. Really exciting to see all that stuff come on Chrome.
I think it's nice as well. Sometimes it's nice to see that things don't always quite go smoothly.
They're always the most
Handled with
exciting
grace and
ones, though.
style.
You can always see the presenter working through and troubleshooting. They're always the exciting ones. It becomes
it's one of those things. I know. Well, I'll come back to it tomorrow and it'll work. Like I said, I did it 3 times this morning, and you could see that in the portal. You could see that I had references to my Ben and AGs. But
hey, at least you don't have to borrow a laptop.
This is true. Yeah, my first ever presentation away from the safety of Exeter was in Cardiff, and my little notebook that I had didn't have enough power to power the massive screen over HDMI. But luckily, I had all of my code in OneDrive. I had all of my demos in Azure Machines, and I had my PowerPoint in OneDrive as well. And there was a wonderful man named Stuart Moore who was also presenting that day, and he lent me his laptop, which was absolutely fabulous. It was amazing. It meant I could do my demos and everything. It was also a Mac.
You see, you have a Mac, it works.
It's true.
I'm pretty sure there was a session that we did together, Rob, where it was kind of a wing it session to begin with because we were standing in for somebody else, and I came in, plugged in and we had a similar issue trying to get them, and we just had to wing the first 30 minutes of the presentation that we were winging to begin with without anything on the screen behind us.
Yeah, it happens. It does happen, and I think you're right. Watching, hopefully watching, people look at a screen and go, "What's going on there?" Then is also beneficial. So it's good fun.
Well, thank you. It's a fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you so much.
I'm just going to quickly share my screen, just to remind anyone who's not seen it that we would love to have some feedback on the sessions tonight, as I'm sure with the speakers. And as a little bonus, if you fill out the form, you have the chance to win a drone. And it's not best feedback. We'll just put everyone who registers a piece of feedback into the draw. So please just let us know what you thought of tonight's sessions. It'd be much appreciated, I'm sure. Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much to Jonathan, Annette, and Rob for presenting tonight, and also to everyone else over the week. I know some of you have done a few more nights, but yeah, we've had a good turnout every night. It's quite nice to see people all try something a bit different in these trying times. And we're hoping we will be back at some point to do it properly. We're not quite sure when on dates yet. We are playing it cautiously. I had COVID last year and don't fancy having it again, though I'm half vaccinated now.
Congratulations.
But yes, the benefits of being over 45. There are some. So yeah, we will be back, and we look forward to seeing everyone actually in person. It's been fun this week. It was much more fun actually meeting people and getting to chat to people over sandwiches in between sessions.
Yeah, I miss the road.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much, everyone.
Yes, thank you very much, everyone. And please keep an eye on these things. We're hoping to have an announcement, probably towards the end of summer. We'll know what we're doing in terms of dates and stuff. So please keep an eye on Twitter. And also, you've now all signed up to our mailing list. So we'll let you know that way as well.
All right.
Okay, right. Everyone have a good weekend. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe. And we look forward to seeing you at another point. Good night.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you.